Good afternoon and welcome to Conversations for Good. I am John Olajide, founder and CEO of Axxess, a Dallas-based business which I'm proud to say is a leader in home healthcare technology. I've also had the privilege to chair this year to serve as the 2020 chair for the Dallas Regional Chamber. And one of my priorities during the year has been to highlight the many ways that business is a force for good. This focus on business as a force for good is one I am deeply, deeply passionate about. And the Conversations for Good series brings together business leaders, community leaders, and entrepreneurs who embody what it means to be or what it means to use business as a force for good in the Dallas-Fort Worth region and beyond. To talk more about this today, I am thrilled to welcome my friend Hattie Hill, the CEO and president of TDGX Foundation. For those of you who may not know Hattie, I call her Miss Hattie. She spent more than 30 years developing successful global diversity and inclusion and gender equity strategies for corporations, nonprofits, and foundations across 70 countries. That's a lot of countries. It's a lot of freaking flyer miles, Miss Hattie. Her aim is to drive cultural change by prioritizing the importance that businesses and individuals place on diversity. I know this personally that she believes talent and culture is a new currency. The new corporate currency is what she likes to call it, and wants to see people of all backgrounds and gender enjoy success. And she talks to me about that all the time. This year has afforded a unique opportunity to tackle the challenges we face as a community and nation and as a world really around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I am so excited that we have an expert on that issue here with us today. Over the last few months, I've had the opportunity to work with Hattie as part of the Dallas Regional Chamber's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council. And I'm honored to call her my friend. I tease her a lot that she's got a lot of wisdom, and I would much rather listen to her than even speak when I'm around her. It's truly an honor to call Hattie my friend and someone that I know. Miss Hattie, welcome and thank you for joining me today.
John, thank you for having me. I'm so excited. Congratulations, by the way. This is awesome. I love this whole concept. So, conversations for good. It couldn't be a better time for it. So, I'm excited to be here with
Thank you so much. What a year we're having. And it's interesting that a lot of the conversations that we're having around diversity, equity, and inclusion are things that you've worked on over the past 3 decades. You know all about this from your work just around the world, around the globe, different organizations, different corporations. So, from your perspective, please tell us how much progress has been made, and are you hopeful that the awareness of the issues now we're having will lead to lasting change? What are your thoughts about all of this?
So, first of all, I'm just happy to be here with you, and thank you for your leadership on this issue, John, for the community. It's so important, and you were the leader for the time. It's absolutely been a year we could not imagine. I was actually thinking this morning when we had the annual meeting back in January for the chamber, and how far we have come since then. But the work around diversity, equity, inclusion, for me, it's been a 25, 30-year run. It started back in the days of affirmative action. We were doing this work all over the world. Major corporations, nonprofits, people started to get their arms around the work of diversity, equity, inclusion. But then when we had the horrendous murder of George Floyd, it made all of us stop and do a quick pivot. I think it was such a reality check for us that the very human spirit had to do something different. So this has really been, for me, an opportunity to bring my skills, my voice, partner with you as a leader. So it's been a really exciting time, and I think we've made some great progress.
Well, thank you, Hattie. You know, what I can tell from your responses is that you're being very modest about what you're saying. Because I know the work we've done together this year. I know a lot of the conversations we've had, how much I've learned from you. So I'm not going to let you get away with that modesty. I want to investigate this a lot more. So
Oh,
following the George Floyd killing, you know that the Dallas Regional Chamber has really led the way in serving as an example for business communities around the country and addressing the need for more diversity and racial equity. And you've played an important role in that. So I would like you to talk about the progress that's been made and give us details. I don't want modesty here. Just tell us, and I
sure.
want everyone to understand the critical role, the leading role you've played in helping us navigate these issues, please.
So I think what happened, John, is that we were all in place for the moment, and when the student is ready, the teacher will come. And in this case, because of my 20 plus years in this work, and also because I'm a member of the chamber board, because you asked, let's just put it down there. You said, how do you jump in and help us with this? But I was able to bring my expertise in this work to the chamber, and there was some very important pieces of this work. Anytime you're taking on something in a passionate moment, the most important part is that it becomes sustainable. So the first thing we did was really get, and you did an awesome job to get all of the board members to agree, to have a unanimous vote that we would have a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee, council of the board, which is so important. That we would attach that work from a governance perspective at a high level, which means the chair as and the co-chair of the board would then lead that. And then bringing in these critical business leaders who all were willing to put their hand in and say, yes, we want to be a part of this, and to focus on critical areas within our community, diversity and leadership, which is so important, education and workforce readiness. Um, my committee, which is the community investment, and looking at our southern sector where there's so much opportunity. And then, of course, based on the George Floyd work, the whole concept of policing and criminal justice. So our work is a huge collective. It's been a wonderful collaboration. So I won't take credit for anything, but being willing to stay up late and recalibrate and organize. But what I wanted to do was to bring my history of working best practices in this work. Um, and we've done that all over the world, so I could clearly do it in my community. So what are the best practices? How do we make this work sustainable? We want this work to be in place when we are long gone, John. And that, to me, was what we solidified under your leadership. And I was just happy to play a part.
Thank you, Addie, for that. So these have been important steps, and you know that as we did this work together, I learned a lot, especially about the practice of diversity, equity, and inclusion to make sure we're making real progress. Well, you've been around these issues for so many years, so help me understand how do we measure progress? How do we ensure, or how do we measure really that progress is being made?
Sure. To measure progress around diversity, equity, inclusion, you really have to treat it like you would any other part of your business. So we measure our financial results, we measure our sales, we measure any type of customer support, technology. It's still a practice. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is just a practice, just like any other part of our business. And so we put in those measurements up front. So we measure representation. Who does the company have diversity on their board of directors, in their leadership? We measure employee engagement. That's a really big one now, especially in the world of COVID. We can measure community engagement. So as you could see, the many corporations who stepped up to help are not only accountable on this board, but they're accountable in their organizations. So your organization has to create its own dashboard. But once that dashboard is completed, one of the biggest pieces of this puzzle is the consistency. Really looking, going online, putting in resources. So one of the best things that the chamber did, I was so proud of this work that our CEO, Dale Petrosky, committed two positions, the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Senior Vice President and a Community Engagement Senior Vice President, because it's going to take all of that work together, one, to work on the practice, and then two, to work on the community engagement. So those are great measurements that you can put in place. The last thing I'll tell you about measuring this work is that just like, and I always compare it to customer service. Do you continue to measure customer service in your business? You do if you want to stay in business, right?
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
absolutely, right? So it's the same. You don't end the diversity, equity, and inclusion work. It is absolutely an ongoing process. It's a journey, it's not a destination. It will continue to change. When you look at this social justice work, all of that will have an impact on how we frame the DEI work, especially in our corporations and in the community.
Wow, there's a lot of wisdom packed into your words as always, and I'm not surprised by that. You know, I mentioned in your introduction that you believe that talent and culture are the new corporate currency, and you spent a lot of time talking to me about the diversity dividend. Okay, so talk about that and why that's important. So talk about talent and culture being, you know, the new corporate currency, and talk about the diversity dividend as well. I want as many people as possible to hear you talk about that directly.
Well, the talent and culture is really what will make our organization successful. If we've never seen that, COVID has made that front and center for all of the companies. And it's really been interesting because the employees are asking us for two things: transparency and accountability.
Yep, I agree.
So they want to know what you're doing. They want to know what you're doing about social justice. I had a millennial say to me this week, it was my favorite moment of the week. See, we were right after all. We can work from home, we can be productive, and we can help the bottom line in the company. And I smiled because
I can totally relate. We've heard a lot of millennials tell us the same thing.
yeah, that we were right. Y'all, you know, you baby boomers were wrong. I'm a baby boomer, you're not. But but that dividend, that diversity bottom line said you bring the right people to the table. We are no longer right just because of our age. It's the great representation of thoughts, ideas, innovation. All of that is your diversity dividend. And it continues, depending on what business that you're in, to grow every day. And if we never thought in our history we would need all thoughts on deck, COVID has proven to us that we really do. And that's your bottom line dividend.
Wow, you know, I just want to say for those that are listening, you're joining Conversations for Good, and what we're talking about today is how business can be a force for good. And we're having conversations with my dear friend and someone I respect so very much, Hattie Hill. And I thought I'd heard it all, but as you can see, there's so much wisdom here, and I'm learning a lot more today. So Hattie, you've shared this with me many times that diversity and equity issues go way beyond the business community, and we all know that. We agree. It's all over. I mean, these issues are pervasive, candidly. And the challenges that we have faced in education due to COVID-19, have been particularly impacting our communities that have been historically disadvantaged. You know all about that. And I know that the TDGX Foundation did important work this summer to bring education programs to kids. You're very passionate about that. You spent a lot of time talking to me a lot about that, and you got a lot of support from the business community. Please talk about that, please, so we can understand that a lot more, and talk about the impact that all your work had recently, especially.
Thanks. Well, first of all, my boss, our chairman of our board, TD Jakes, is one of the most powerful brands, in not only in the
And
country.
I love him. Okay.
And he loves you, and he said
Yep.
hello. he was he was just texting me and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm talking to John. I can't talk, so I just want you to know I put my boss on hold."
Oh, I appreciate that. Okay.
But you know, what he said to us after COVID happened, he said, let's go and do two things. Let's partner in the community to get people jobs, and then let's see what we can do to help the students. And
Yep.
so for us, and thank you for your partnership, because Axxess was one of the partners, we literally within 45 days put together an online virtual academy. The face-to-face event that we normally have every year would be between 300 and 400 attendees. We opened and had to close registration because we were over 5,000. And so,
Wow.
yeah, I know, right? So
Wow.
it was, all of the issues around the digital divide, the connectivity. We had awesome partners like yourself, the Mavericks, AT&T, Jacobs, people who just stood right with us to say, we want to make sure that our students don't get lost in this whole process with COVID. So we had a great opportunity. It was a great time that we learned a lot. There were so many lessons that we just weren't prepared for. We had no idea of the connectivity issues, the lack of hotspots. I mean, all of the rules, but we were able to power through it, and getting ready to do it again. So it had to be a good thing. But here's what I think that we all will walk away from this year as we close 2020 is that, and you talk about silver linings all the time, John, and
Yep.
I learned this from you. I have started even to speak to my family and friends to talk about the gift.
The only thing you've ever learned from me, by the way.
No, the gift of COVID, So the gift of COVID made us all work better together. It brought us, it really opened our eyes about what was really happening in the community. That was a huge gift.
Yep.
Um,
Totally.
you had no idea until you're standing out, handing out Chromebooks, and you've got a grandmother who's the guardian for a young child, and she has no idea what a username is. You got to start with the basics. So I will forever, be very thankful to our chairman, TD Jakes, and to amazing people like you, John, with the Axxess family, for just helping us push a big boulder up the hill, because now we truly know the work that has to be done, not just for this summer, but now going forward. And when we had some great collaborations. We had the Dallas Symphony, and they did a closing song, and everyone's doing it from home, but they made it look like we were all together, which is fabulous. STEAM is about technology, of course, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math.
Yep.
But what we've seen happen with technology to get us through COVID has been amazing.
Well, it's I was just reflecting on, as you were speaking, on the conversations we had about this camp and all the work you were going to do prior to COVID, and to think about just how important that work is now, And I'm just trying to imagine what the world for those kids would have been like if you hadn't done all the work and all the planning and just all the incredible work the TDGX Foundation had been doing prior to COVID, and how that was even more important during COVID. I just can't imagine what the world for those kids would have been like if you didn't do this work, Hattie. I just can't imagine.
You know, it's what keeps me up at night even now, um, because it's one of the most emotional things for me because I listened on the phone. We had to go and get customer service people to just help every day with helping young people get online, and the parents who are trying to parent from home and they're frustrated. And so I think the gift of this is that we now know. And when you constantly tell us we have to be a force for good,
Yep.
that means that we all have to join our hands and be very conscious about our actions on a day-to-day basis to make a difference. So I was excited to partner with you on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Hattie. And I've told you this before, and I just want to say this again so everyone knows and hears me say it. You are a personal force for good. I don't know, whatever I say that you say, no, John. But it's important, the work that you're doing, and I know you pour your heart into this. So thank you so much for your leadership. We've covered a lot of ground today. So as we come to the end of this this conversation that we're having, so tell me, when I have conversations, I like takeaways. So
Mhm.
what's the most important takeaway you would want to share on the importance of diversity and inclusion and equity and the role that business can play in making progress in this area? Just one important takeaway.
You know, I can't look around, John, and depend on someone else to make the world better. It's right now all hands on deck. And so what I would share is that each one of us have our own personal platforms, whether it's your organization, our community work like we're doing with the chamber and other organizations, or just us as individuals. And when your number is called, because my expertise was called on by the chamber and I was honored to support, but my closing thoughts was we all have to be a force for good. And that is really what I want to do every day.
Wow, 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 wow. Hattie, thank you for your time. Thank you so much. And thank you for all the work that you do, not wanting any acclaim or recognition, just to make our world a better place and a more equitable place. It's such a pleasure to know you. It's been a delight to have this conversation with you. And now a lot more people know why you're such a treasured friend. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank
And if you've enjoyed this conversation for good, please share and like this video, and join us in the conversation on how business can be a force for good, and not just business, how you can be a force for good, because it takes all of us working together to make our world a better place. Thank you to those that are tuning in. I look forward to many conversations like this, and it's been so much fun to have this conversation. Thank you, Hattie, and
Thank
thanks to everyone that joined us today.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.